All right, we are on filmsgonewild.com. My name is John Wildman. I'm the editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild, and we're going to talk about a film that's screening at Dances with Films New York. We're right now at the Regal Cinema at Irvington Square. Introduce yourself.
I'm Sean Zekowski, one of the lead actors who plays Christopher in By the Grace of God, and one of the producers as well.
Okay, and our audience likely has not seen By the Grace of God as yet, so introduce us to the film.
By the Grace of God is the story of two priests, Thomas and Christopher, who go on a wine-drinking escapade in Solvang, California to find the perfect wine to save their dwindling church, parish. It's warm, funny, plenty of drama, and plenty of twists and turns along the way, especially with some of the amazing dynamic characters and actors we have in it. Starring Kurt Baltz, Reservoir Dogs, Natural Born Killers, Dancing with Wolves, obviously with the Dances connection there. And, you know, it's just been such a great privilege to work with such an actor like Kurt.
Well, we've already heard everything we needed. We're done. Okay. No. Holy crap, producer dude, pitching your movie. All right. Every time I pass this guy in the hall, I go, "It's a great job in your film." And one of the things that, again, that I mentioned is that you have a wonderful chemistry with Kurt in this, and I would love to start off with that. We're going to talk about acting first, but then we're getting to producing. But acting, because while this is not really a two-hander, it has kind of that flavor because it's the two of you, going back and forth. And so I would love for you to talk about that, about playing off of each other, and that whole thing of acting is reacting. Talk about that dynamic.
Absolutely. Fortunately, Kurt going through the gauntlet of the process of auditioning and everything, I had actually met him at one of the acting schools that we went to, so I kind of had a feel for, how he operates. He kind of had a feel for how I operate, and in the end, we still have to make a decision about what's the best fit for the film. And Kurt really drove through that audition process quite nicely. He really charmed the writer Kevin Hickey right off the bat. And getting to work with him, a guy who's had that kind of experience, really a lot of times can alleviate the lift on, this is my first feature film as a lead. I've done shorts and other feature films, just feature films more in major supporting roles. But having an actor like that you can lean on, who comes in prepped and is ready to go and really can embody a character, does allow you to kind of have that fun play that you look for, allow you to experiment, try things. Also, just working with a guy like that who he's very instinctual like myself, and so there's little things that we iron out as we rehearse, and then as we get on the set, so I think the great part about it is we had the opportunity to get away before filming to really take a dive into our characters. Christopher is a he's a very trusting person, and a very convicted person. He makes this choice to go down this priest rabbit hole at a very young age, and his connection with his faith and how he does that, and having these two actors who go through a midlife crisis, and actors kind of feel it all the time between jobs. So I think it really brought a lot of authenticity to it, and just naturally working with a guy who embodies Thomas and where he's at so well. Just honestly made it a big, easy lift, and then all the other talents that I got to work with.
Let's backtrack just a little bit though on the audition process. So, did you actually have auditions in person?
Absolutely. We actually started off with self-tapes, and then from self-tapes we came in for callbacks and chemistry tests through that. And one of the things we had noticed was that connection Kirk and I have on screen was palpable. We were like, hey, this is really working. Obviously, we have to go through the process because there was also other names like Kirk out there that just, they have extensive careers, and it was really trying to see how that nuance and how it was shaping also in our director's eyes with the writer, and trying to keep beat of Kevin's work. So Comkill did a really great job in bringing on Kirk with us, and I couldn't be more thankful for it.
But that's because I've had multiple conversations with other actors here talking about because I'm insanely old, and I remember doing auditions where I'd be in a room with 19 of me, right, auditioning for the same role, and you're going, we all look alike, kind of thing. And now, because there's so much self-taping is if you if you don't start off with that, that's all you're doing, and you get the job based on that. So that, you know, to hear you actually were doing chemistry read auditions and actually, you know, could be directed, like, you know, while you're auditioning, seems somewhat rare, and I would have to think it's somewhat of a gift.
It is. It is a gift for sure, and it has become a little bit more rare. I've been fortunate for myself. I've been lucky enough to have quite a few in-person auditions, even in this day and age of self-tapes. But I think it's extremely important, and this comes from the producing side as well, is, you know, especially in independent film where our budgets are tight, our deadlines are tight. I mean, obviously we were working against the strike. We were one of the very few films that got SAG-AFTRA approved to, you know, keep people working during the strike. So having that opportunity to have people in person is paramount, and I think it's innate that every independent film producer, I personally believe, should at least have some form of at least one in-person audition, or at least a chemistry test, because those dynamics are going to help shape not only what happens with the script, but when you get on set and, you know, with, you know, film, something goes wrong and you have to make adjustments, and, you know, having a professional with that experience, you know, is paramount, but also having actors who can work with that, knowing, you know, Hollywood has changed and how that dynamic works too.
Now, in this film, and we're not going to have any spoilers, but your character actually has, let's call it an intimate scene. And, you know, and when we film that stuff now, this is, again, is very different. We have intimacy coordinators. We have a very different sensibility in how we approach that. You know, again, like, you know, I remember, you know, doing a scene, and this is like, you know, decades ago, and where the director was at the base of the bed scrunching up sheets so you could get like another topless scene in the film, right? You had that, which would be insane to even think somebody would try to pull that off now. But I would love for you to talk about how that scene was approached with you and the actors that you're working with, and, you know, and how that worked to take care of the both of you in seeing that, making that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously one, it was paramount on my end from a level to ensure that, you know, we as a producer, that there's not an abuse of power. I think that's first and foremost important, so that's why we want to ensure for our actress Melanie Mahana, who did a phenomenal job.
She was great.
Absolutely. In a New York native herself, you know, she's based in LA right now, but unfortunately couldn't make it. But, you know, it was about protecting us each. Well, you know, each partner, you know, there's obviously a producer. We don't want an abuse of power like we've seen previously in Hollywood. And that's their job, is to come in and give you protection and give you freedom. Logan Davis did a great job about communicating with us and allowing us to manage the set so that not that anyone, like, we had a wonderful crew and cast. Nobody was looking for, you know, peaks, and obviously, you know, as you've seen the scene without any spoilers, you know, it was a great opportunity to have someone there. Logan, you know, it was also nice that she was a woman, so we could provide additional comfort for Melanie during this process. You know, I communicated with Melanie early on, and we actually, she was recommended by Melanie because we wanted to ensure that her comfort was important. And as far as intimacy coordinators go, you know, in a different perspective, from I'm coming on as an actor, you know, I leave that more open to who's ever my partner. Like, you know, I'm okay with doing it with or without, but I do think they are important, and I think it's important that communication is important. That starts with the actors communicating, and then obviously communicating that with the producers, and obviously that's 2-for-1 deal with me. But we knew long prior to even bringing on an actress that we had to do that from a standpoint of ensuring that whoever got the role could feel comfortable, and we would also, no matter who it had been, we wanted to have, if they knew someone or if they had worked with someone previously in that respect, to give them that opportunity to provide them to it. And Logan, like many of the crew on our staff, you know, we're generous enough to be like, hey, we'll meet you at this rate because we understand it's a strike. We understand that you guys are on a really tight budget, and, you know, she had such a great initial friendship with Melanie from previous work that, you know, it just allowed us to feel rest assured that Melanie would feel okay. And I think that's something that, you know, I know there's people who totally disregard it, and, you know, that's the product. I don't agree with that. You know, I think, like I said, it all comes down to communication and ensuring that everyone feels safe on set, because that's what allows the operation for play.
Yeah. Well, and I have to say, you know, again, watching that scene, you know, it is it is done so organically and comes out so naturally that it does not feel tacked on at all, and it really does come to a point where you go, yeah, this because listen, we watch big screen entertainment a lot, and sometimes you go, oh yeah, we had to see this, we had to, and regardless of what's revealed literally, skin-wise, and this is incredibly tastefully done. Regardless of that, it's just like, did we really need this? Is this, and this is a case where you go, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Where Christopher's at in his journey and how it goes, it's without giving spoilers, it's an intangible necessary for the continuation of Christopher's growth throughout the story and his completion of, I don't want to say full circle as if everything else, but the completion of his arc and understanding his journey and where he's going. So in the end, that was something we, once again, obviously from a production standpoint, we're cautious about ensuring, and I have to give our hats off to Colm Kildanson, our director, also working so hand in hand with the intimacy coordinator and myself and Melanie. Hats off to them for being in that team, because this was obviously Colm McKill's first feature film, and so a lot of times in college they don't get really that opportunity to work with a full-on intimacy coordinator. So I think it was just phenomenal out the gate how well the crew, especially Logan, Colm, Melanie, and I were able to just, hey, let's talk, let's see what we need to do, because there were adjustments we needed to make during it to say and talk through that with Logan to make sure that Melanie and I both were protected, because things do happen to men on set as well, but at the same time we want to make sure that everyone's safe and everybody's literally acting appropriately for the moment.
Final question is the division of producer brain versus actor brain. And and I know for myself, because I've directed myself on camera, and when you're either a producer or a director for a project and you're also acting in it, well, as a producer director, you're like Rain Man over everything and all the details. And for myself, I know that sometimes I can give short shrift to my own performance because I'm worried about every other thing and I'm paying attention to every other thing. And I get the editing bay and go, I should have done one more take. God damn it, right? Talk about yourself, like how you were able to compartmentalize with all the producer responsibilities, and then be in the moment of going, now this is all I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really comes more from my work as an actor and being prepped. I like to call it a joke, but the actual truth is I knew every script front to back from V1 when I started with Kevin on making some edits to the script, and really it's just me giving suggestions. All hats off to Kevin, nobody else co-wrote. We just, my work with working with movies and film prior to becoming an actor allowed a little bit of guidance to help kind of smooth out the edges of the things he wanted to fix that he didn't have an idea. I would throw out a bajillion ideas. He might take one and might not even use that fully, but like, oh no, this inspires something, and he moves, and that's just the talent he is. But as a producer on set, yeah, you have everyone coming at you, but fortunately, I had two great co-producers, and obviously, a guy who's sitting over off camera right now, our sound guy, Mohammed Sultan, also has produced and directed, and he, in between sound, was helping us with additional adjustments. But I think it comes off through having the right co-producers and the people you hire around you to give you that space. Like, hey, sometimes, yes, I do have to check in, sign a paper, hey, yeah, we need this. But at the same time, I do have to have that space to, prep the circumstances prior, come in, and also rehearse and be embodied in character. So, fortunately, I think it really is, and it was really what I've been going, and I don't say this to, be performative or anything. I have been the beneficiary of hiring all of my betters around me, and you couldn't be more, and it's always punny because of the name of our film, By the Grace of God, I couldn't be more blessed. And we as a production could have been more blessed to have that, because there's levels to this, and a lot of these people brought some levels that at independent film sometimes you couldn't truly afford, but the generosity and the believing in the story is what drove this whole crew to join us, and like I said, thankful for that.
You can't see this, but Muhammad is a very imposing presence here. I thought he was here just to beat the crap out of me because that's the wrong question.
Can we swing it?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And he's one hell of a writer. The fact that,
Okay. I guess Muhammad is here for quality control, if you know what I mean.
That has been the question, if he's my bodyguard. And I'm like, I mean, we're both Marines. Sometimes he might throw me at. He's like, "Hey, Sean, can we throw you at the dogs?" I'm like, "Okay," but he's one of the really good ones in Hollywood. I've known him for 16 years. We have a driver of a child, if we will, solely. But he's one of those guys that you can count on, and he also obviously he has to be involved with even say the intimacy scene and being able to provide that comfort for myself, Melanie, even the intimacy coordinator to put himself in a spot where they're feeling comfortable that we don't have too many prying eyes, while being able to collect the appropriate sound was phenomenal.
Well, I'll tell you, it's something that dovetails, and again, because I've seen the film, and I see the nature of it, and so much of what you've talked about, and even just now, that you see that kind of infused in the film, that it really does have, and it sounds, maybe try to say, but it really does have a love to it, this film, throughout, and whether it be, between Kurt's character in terms of, of the generosity and spirit between them, but also with you and Melanie's character. I mean, there's just a lot, Kurt and the kids that he's trying to counsel, whatever. Again, it's like, there's stuff that he played for hilarious big laughs, but by the grace of God, it looks like it goes just under that a little bit to keep the warmth and reality rather than go for the big yucks, and I think it does that very, very well.
Yeah, as I mentioned to you previously, one of the things I promised to Kevin Hickey, the writer, we both attended DePaul University in Chicago, so this all started over, there's a Chicago deep dish restaurant out where he lived in California. We met up there after I got the script, and I promised Kevin, I said, and I think it shows as you've met Kevin that I see the heartbeat of this, it's you. And I promise you, we are going to find a director, thank you, Colm Kill, who will help us march a film to the beat of his heart. This is partially inspired. Once, obviously, he took a trip with Solvang, got extremely inspired, and then partly inspired by the love of his wife Natasha, and to be able to have something that has that much heart within it, really transferred over to the cast, and obviously it showed in the script, which was lucky enough to get a crew like Muhammad, Betsy Zuck, who's worked on phenomenal films with the likes of Morgan Freeman, John Malkovich, those sort of people who really took a shot on us, and in the end we made some lifelong friendships in that process as well, which is just beautiful. And I always tell Betsy, I gotta get you for the next one, and obviously Muhammad and me are always going to be, we're hooking each other up to help each other and try to push this industry in a way that is more inclusive, is more inviting, and we're open for that play, because in the end, like Kevin said, it's not just a film about something, it's also entertaining, which sometimes is missed in films. Kevin makes some entertaining scripts, that's for sure.
Well, guys, congratulations again. Both, it's a delightful film.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.